The Tar Pits. If there is one fossil site in the world that you are familiar with, it is this one, the Brea Tar Pits located in Los Angeles, California. However, what you may not know is that La Brea means the tar in Spanish, meaning that its name is actually the Tar Pits. This location is an uncontested crown jewel in the fossil record. It provides the single greatest chronology out of almost any fossil site on the planet. Howdy friends, my name is Milo Rossi, and today it is my great pleasure to welcome you behind the scenes at the Brea Tar Pits.
Well, now I don't know who to look at. Jesus.
What's going on YouTube?
All right.
Today we are here with a face that may be familiar to many, if not all of you, none other than Lindsay Nikole. Lindsay, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good to be here. I'm happy to finally be in the same place in person. We've done quite a bit together virtually, but today we are here collaboratively at the Brea Tar Pits. Lindsay, you want to give just a quick introduction of yourself, what you're all about for those that may not know?
Absolutely. I'm Lindsay Nikole. I'm a zoologist and science communicator on YouTube. You can find me at Lindsay Nikole. I focus on all types of animals, weird animals, evolution, prehistory, and all that. And yeah, the Tar Pits is awesome. We're in Los Angeles. That's where I'm from. So I love the Tar Pits, and I'm very excited to be here.
I know, here on Lindsay's home turf. I feel a little out of my element. It's hot in December, which is not how my brain works. And Lindsay, you're using this as part of your History of Life on Earth series, is that correct?
I am, yes. The last episode of the History of Life on Earth that we know of. We're covering the Pleistocene and the Holocene, and that's where we live today. So check it out.
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about the time period as a whole, check out Lindsay's video. I'm going to be going a little more in depth on La Brea Tar Pits. Lindsay, good to be here. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome.
Now, while a fossil bed being in one of the most urban environments in the entire country is pretty unique on its own, the La Brea Tar Pits are famous for many other reasons. One of the most interesting of these is the fact that the La Brea Tar Pits are, as the name would suggest, an asphaltic fossil site.
This is the real reason you came back to the Tar Pits. Yeah! That's crazy. Oh yeah, let's get in there. Get a little scoop of that.
There he goes.
Wow, that is bizarre.
Yeah.
Ugh.
This is a very unusual type of fossil site where crude oil bubbles to the surface, and it is this crude oil that has preserved immense quantities of fossils. Asphaltic fossil sites are very uncommon, and they typically occur in places that has both a oil or petroleum deposit and some sort of tectonic activity. In these places, crude oil and tar bubbles to the surface, and it is in this crude oil and tar that fossils are preserved. As you can imagine with how specific the conditions needed for an asphaltic fossil site are, it's a very rare thing to find, with only like a dozen of them in the entire world. And hands down, the most expansive and best known of these sites is the La Brea Tar Pits in Los Angeles. In this site, the tar pits preserve fossils from between 10 and 40,000 years ago. And because of how many fossils have been recovered and how complete the fossil record is, this site gives us one of the best windows into what life was like in this part of the world at the end of the last glaciation. The fossils that you're probably most familiar from this site include, the charismatic Ice Age animals like saber-toothed tigers, cave bears, mammoths, and giant ground sloths. But there are also hundreds of thousands of fossils of other animals recovered from this site as well, like turtles, birds, and amphibians. Myself and Lindsay Nikole were given the unique opportunity to have a look behind the scenes at this famous site, where we were able to take cameras behind the curtain to see how things actually work here. We got to see where fossils are actively being excavated and seeing the light of day for the first time in 40,000 years, as well as the procedures in the lab where they study and prepare these fossils, and even my personal favorite part, the bone vault, just this massive room that is completely full of shelves covered in bones of every animal that you've dreamed of since you were a little kid. So today, in this slightly different video, we're going to be taking a little bit of a look behind the scenes at the La Brea Tar Pits and learning from the experts what goes on at this site and what makes it so special.
Whoa! We got the diorama, dude. What? We got slime.
So this is very much a first draft, but I just love it so much, and I thought it would be helpful for understanding why we have fossils here. Depending on whether you have asphalt seeping up but no stream channel to bury it, you're probably not going to get fossils there. If you get burial without the asphalt coming up, you might get fossils like a lot of the rest of the area, but where they get chemically turned to stone, like most dinosaur fossils we think of, which we still get here too sometimes, but more often we get the classic, where it's a combination of that burial and that asphalt to just beautifully preserve those fossils. And then sometimes you get burial in a stream channel and then asphalt joins the party later. Part of his fossils are starting to turn to stone, but then asphalt joined the party early enough that part of his fossils are preserved by the asphalt as well.
Right.
And then we just teleported forward to 1924, which we found aerial photos to confirm that this was still oil field while we were excavating here. And then this one I just like because
Something tactile. Yeah.
This is really nice because then especially when we had kids that were like, hey, we're trying to explain this, it gave them something to engage with while we were explaining.
So the way a tar pit works is kind of grisly. Like I said, the reason a tar pit exists is because it's on top of a petroleum deposit. So petroleum will bubble to the surface and then it begins to evaporate, which leaves behind just sticky tar residue. Now at the time when the tar pits were active and, sucking in saber-toothed tigers and things like that, it was a much cooler and wetter time period in Earth's history. And so many of the tar pits would get covered in water or dust or leaves and stuff like that and obscure them from the animals walking around. So animals would just end up sort of wandering into these tar pits, whether they thought it was a fresh spring of water they could drink from, or they just thought it was part of the ground. When this would happen with large herbivores like ground sloths and mammoths, carnivores would quickly follow because they thought they could get like an easy meal out of it. Seeing a large animal that was either stuck or dead, the carnivores would sort of pile on in after, trying to, eat it, and then they would all get sucked in as well. This has led to a disproportionately high number of mammal carnivore fossils to mammal herbivore fossils recovered from this site. But what I didn't really know until going here is that there's also really extensive fossils of birds as well, which I guess makes sense because they would, land on the water thinking it was water, and then, it wasn't water.
So if you walk through this park after a rainstorm, you don't see this. You don't see a tar seep, you see a pond. You don't have a 18 million person city sucking up all the water. And so you have, and we know from LA place names, even when the Spanish arrived, it was a lot wetter. Right up the street is La Cienega Boulevard. La Cienega means swamp in Spanish, right? So Rodeo Drive, which is fancy shopping now, that's Rodeo de las Aguas, right? So we know there was a lot more water here even as recently as a couple hundred years ago, but certainly during the Pleistocene.
That is insane, dude.
So this is 404 direwolf skulls.
Wow.
And
that
actual
is ridiculous.
skulls.
Yeah, they're not just casts.
Yeah.
They're actual skulls.
And it's really crazy to see so many in one place because you can really see the variation in each one.
They're different sizes, ages,
Yeah.
sexes. Yeah. I know, looking at the detail of it, where it's some with their teeth missing and some of their teeth worn down.
Yeah, they were very, very, very similar to wolves today in their lifestyle. They were just slightly larger. They weren't like the Game of Thrones dire wolves.
Damn it.
I know.
Oh my god. That's crazy.
Dude, nuts.
What part of the animal are we looking at right here?
Tooth.
Yeah, good and textured. Look at
So
that,
if you look
yeah.
on up here, they only had 4 molars.
Wow.
Which is pretty insane. But they'd go through 6 sets of these.
Wow.
Could you imagine seeing this?
Dude, yeah, that is just I cannot fathom seeing something alive
That you
big.
could walk underneath. You could walk
Yeah.
right underneath it.
Yeah, I know. A little hammock in there. Yeah.
After the initial wow of all the cool stuff they just have, on display in the museum, Lindsay and I met up with our connection at the tar pits and got to see the lab where they're actually processing these fossils.
This is a pretty nice office. You got a good view. Yeah. Wow. Who's this guy?
So this is Zed, this is a Colombian mammoth.
Wow.
So our largest species of mammal that we have here at the tar pits, the Colombian mammoth.
Yeah.
So we have an extremely large collection. We have around 3.5 million specimens in our collection, and we only have 35 Colombian mammoth individuals. And this is a really unique and special one because of the 35 skulls that we have, this is the only one that's really yielded bone touch.
Wow, really?
Exactly.
That's
So those
interesting.
tusks are actually on display in the main museum. You can see them over there. The tusks are really interesting because you can do a cross section of a tusk, and it has rings similar like you would see in a tree. and you can actually count those rings, and they have yearly deposition, so you can determine the age as well. But they also go down to daily deposition, so you can even see if the animal was under stress or things like that. So teeth are really very informative. Love teeth.
How disarticulated do the skeletons typically become in the pits? Because when I think about an animal falling in tar, I'm kind of like, oh, it's got to be mostly there. It's all kind of intact. But you mentioned this is one of the few or the only one that has both tusks. Why is that?
So there's a lot of activities in the deposits. So we have a lot of microbial activity in the asphalt deposits, and it breaks down soft tissue. That's why we don't have any soft tissue remains here with the tar pits. So it breaks that down quite quickly, and what that does is it has the specimen disassociate and this material move away from each other. Z is a bit of a different story. So we often have this entrapment scenario that you were just talking about here at the tar pits. But sometimes we have a different way of how fossils get preserved here at asphalt. But what most likely happened with this specimen is that he came to grief close to a stream channel. Ended up in a stream channel, quickly got covered with sediment, which helped to preserve the skeleton and keep all the remains together. And asphalt came in as a secondary preserving agent at a later stage.
And so people often say, how do you know it was in a stream channel? Well, as amazing as the large fossils are, and as charismatic as a saber-toothed cat or a dire wolf or a mammoth is, large animals have large home ranges. But to really understand depositional context and to understand the environment in which it found itself, what we look at is when we remove the sediment around the specimens, we actually keep it and sort it under a microscope because we look for microfossils in there. And if I can just point out one microfossil, do you see this white here by my finger? That is freshwater shell. All the microfossils around Z, freshwater limpet, freshwater shell, everything indicates an aquatic environment, which supports the hypothesis of it being in a stream channel. But you'll notice all these cones in our park because the asphalt will just come up where it wants to. It follows the path of least resistance. And that's probably what happened here is at a later stage, asphalt came in, started covering the specimen, and then halted that permineralization process.
Since the bones here aren't fully fossilized, is there different information that you can get from these bones that you may not be able to get from other specimens?
So we have access to collagen and protein that is usually not that easy to find. We haven't had ancient DNA found from our specimens yet.
From any at all?
None.
Okay.
None whatsoever. There's a lot of theories on possibly why that could be. Is the asphalt an agent of decay for ancient DNA? But then one must also remember that ancient DNA is a very sensitive material, so it doesn't preserve always, right? It's in very unique circumstances. But yes, that's the one thing that hasn't been found here is the ancient DNA. But our lab is a very unique lab. So apart from being a lab that engages with the public and brings the science into the museum, and we're actually the largest exhibit here, we're also the only lab in the world that does asphaltic fossil preparation. I'm not sure how familiar you are with paleontological preparation, but usually when you watch these documentaries, it's people using zip scribe or pneumatic tools and they flake it away. We have to use chemicals. So we use degreasing solvents. So we actually look and see what do car mechanics use and what do they use in the aerospace industry. It's something we looked at. Because the asphalt that we are dealing with is a byproduct of crude oil. So underneath our feet, we are actually on top of the Salt Lake oil field. And what happens is when there's tectonic activity and there are fissures that open, the oil underneath the ground moves up these cracks. And when they make contact with the atmosphere, what happens is the lighter elements dissipate into the air and the heavier elements stay behind in the form of the sticky asphalt. So think about a popsicle. If you just leave it on the table, it turns into a liquid, but then when it dries up, you just have those sticky remnants of the sugar. So it's a similar concept to that. And so what we're dealing with is oil. We have to dissolve and soften the oil so that we can remove it from the specimen gently and carefully without doing any damage, but also keeping in mind that even though you think you're looking at one fossil, you might be looking at many more because we have those microfossils embedded.
As you can probably imagine, a fossil coming out of a giant pit of tar where it's been buried for 30,000 years is covered in tar. And so, of course, the paleontologists and scientists working at this site have to figure out creative ways to get all of the tar off of these fossils.
This is usually what it looks like. You can see a little bit of that brown bone underneath it. And then this is what we call matrix. So matrix is, it's the composition of the sediment, the sand, the rocks, the pebbles, and any other biological organic material that got enclosed and encased in this preservation. And then you'll notice all our tools are soft tools. We use Q-tips, paint brushes, and yes, we do use our toothbrushes to clean their teeth as well. And the reason for why we use this is because it's a delicate tool to use on the specimen, so that if we push too hard or something is resistant, the tool is going to be the thing that suffers instead of damaging the specimen itself. We use degreasing solvent called Novex 73DE. It's used in the medical industry actually, in a vapor form to remove fats and lipids from delicate surgical equipment. And we don't use it in a vapor form, we use it here in a liquid form. All fossils from Brea Tar Pits have this characteristic brown coloration to it. It's often referred to as the Brea brown or the Brea patina, and it's as a result of the staining from the asphalt. It's a gradual technique, and we are quite meticulous about it because, again, like I said, we want to make sure that we preserve anything in there that's of microfossil material, because the microfossils are very important in telling us about this location. And then here I just have a part of a turtle shell.
Oh, whoa.
So,
oh, that's so sick.
I know. And then you can see it
It's
broke.
like a little puzzle piece. Yeah.
Exactly. We do a lot of 3D puzzle building here. And you'll see it's still got some of that asphalt on it. But here's all the matrix we removed.
Oh, so you keep that
Yes,
with it.
we keep it. Exactly.
Gotcha. That's cool.
And then one thing you'll notice is, do you see we've got the information of the grid and level from where it came out in the deposit written over here? And so what we do is, once we finish the preparation of all these specimens that you see around you, we come back and we harvest all the matrix associated with these deposits. We then put it in a vat of solvent to remove the asphalt, and then can take it over to the microscope and sort for microfossil material over there.
But this isn't an application of a solvent like you're, cleaning your kitchen floors or degreasing industrial equipment. So the researchers at Brea had to dig pretty deep to figure out what the best products were to use on these fossils to not damage them.
Yeah, so I mean, this is even started a little bit before I came here. So also Stevie Morley helped us a lot with this. And this is, Stevie picked 6 different solvents with all these different properties just to figure out which one is best, the way things have been done in the past. Started in 1913 with boiling kerosene, which is flammable and you're boiling it. And so, just over time, chemistry improves. And so we can get all these different products to test out. And we just found, okay, we're looking at kind of a nice sweet spot in terms of the chemicals. We're looking for something that evaporates very quickly so it doesn't stay in the bone. So some of these that people use a lot, like D-limonene, is that orange smell you get in cleaners. It's like a lot of household cleaners. It evaporates so slowly, it's still in the specimens that we prepared with it. So you can actually years later pick it up and still get that orange smell. And so it's just, I mean, but
That's awesome.
it's lingering in the bone and it's causing it to crumble and literally like damaging it over time. And then the other part was, how do we use it?
Oh, I see. So this is the difference between soaking it in a solution and doing what you were doing there with the little brush.
Exactly.
And I mean, it looks better too. Look at that
Absolutely.
one. That's it's amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Seeing a giant mammoth skull on the floor when walking into the lab was pretty mind-blowing, and that's because, obviously you'd be hard-pressed to find something as exciting from the last ice age as a mammoth. It is far from the only or even most important fossils recovered from this site. As big as Zed might be, there's actually more information that can be gleaned from the caked-on sediments around him.
I like to say when in the lab that all sizes matter. So not just Zed, which you could trip over, but also these little microfossils.
Are you sorting through the fossils with this?
I am sorting. One of the volunteers designed this particular mapping situation where you can look at this, like this is what it looks like, right? But when you put it under the microscope, you can tell what part is sediment, what part is bone, what part goes with plants.
Wow, that's amazing.
What parts are insect parts. And then we get shells too, parts of shell as well, which gives another piece of information about this area, which is quite fascinating. And then, of course, there's always a part that you don't recognize.
The mystery.
So that goes here, that goes here, and then we run to Stephanie or Connie and say, what is this? What is this? Informational and fun.
People often think the only thing we do in this lab is we just remove the matrix, or we just remove the asphalt, and that's it. But this lab actually has a big component of conservation work that we do as well.
Many of the fossils that end up getting recovered from the tar pits are not complete. This leaves researchers with the amazing task of getting to try and piece back together these tar-caked fossils like a giant jigsaw puzzle.
What is this?
Upper jaw of the horse.
Wow.
Yeah. And you can tell it was in many, many, many pieces. There are more pieces over here. There's that's the skull.
Wow, look at that.
That we've been working on.
How long has this been taking so far?
Well, this came out of collections, and I've been working on it. Well, let's see. Okay, thank you. It is, let's see, it was found in, that's its passport, in 1978.
Wow,
okay,
wow.
and so they had different ways of conserving it at that time, and they used Elmer's glue, or white glue. But that doesn't have longevity. So I've been cleaning the glue out and using our paraloid here to glue some of it together, but also something wonderful called kozu paper, which is very strong. It's made from the mulberry tree. And it's the bark part of the bark, and it's very, very fibrous. The inside of this guy is just, you can see, yeah.
Little bandages.
Wow. That's right. And the support here is pretty critical. We didn't know if that would hold or not, but the kozu paper, it's 2 levels of kozu paper here, and it is really very strong and it's done very well.
I see, so the paper is something that, it's not just adhesive on the broken joint, it's like, you know,
right.
putting adhesive around it as well and holding it together a little stronger.
Correct.
Before heading into the big secret fossil bunker, we got a chance to go out into the field to see where these fossils are actually being recovered from.
There you go. Very signature, Lindsay. We've incorporated the mic into the bucket hat.
Oh, yes.
Smells like tar. It smells like someone's doing road work.
Well, that's
bizarre.
That's a tar pit right there, right?
Pretty unassuming. Well, that was the thing, right?
That's how they got stuck.
Yeah,
right?
I guess so. If they knew it was a tar
that
pit,
was the
they wouldn't have
problem in the
stepped
first
it.
place.
That is a cellar. You when you wake up in the morning.
Oh, where am I? Yeah, really.
You know, I think I figured out what my favorite part of this is. It's people opening gates that are otherwise locked.
Gates in here feel like Jurassic Park.
It really does. You set this up, it looks so nice. It's like a little display case. That's fancy.
But especially with so much wind that we had lately, you can see it's made this fine layer of clay from some of these sediments kind of go across the surface. Huh. So I tried to sweep up some of the areas that I wanted to show you guys so it would show up nicer.
So sick.
That is insane. What is that?
Looking at you.
Yeah.
So welcome to Project 23. Project 23 came about when the art museum that shares the park with us several years ago built an underground parking garage. And if you dig underground next to one of the largest urban deposits of fossils in the world, hopefully no one's surprised that we found more fossils. But there was so much material and they kind of wanted to finish their construction ever. But we're lucky that we're in California when we are. There's a lot of legislation in the books that helps protect these non-renewable resources that belong to everybody. So they already had a team on site with the construction team who specialize in going before, during, and after the big equipment, looking for fossils. And we're spoiled when our fossils tend to come in clumps due to just the way the stream channels used to work their way down here. And so they were able to isolate the entire sections of Earth with particular fossil deposits, build boxes around them with the same company that helps move live trees. Wow. By building boxes around the root balls. And they came over in 23 boxes, which is why we call it Project 23. So we have right here in front that I have my lights on. I was trying to make pretty for you guys. So this one's the elbow end of a saber-toothed cat humerus, so the upper front leg. That's the little groove that the crescent wrench of the ulna, the lower front leg, would plug into. So that's that action happening here. We've got the rib of a nice big herbivore, probably a horse or a bison. Back here, I have the lower jaw of one of our big paramylodon ground sloths. Those guys are like rhino-sized. not around anymore. But again, that's why they're ground sloths, not tree sloths. Over on that side, a lot of really big bird bones. And in this box already, I have at least 2 gymnogyps, or big condors, and 1 really well, good-shaped territorn. It's our largest of our birds. We just met, but do you mind holding my hand for a moment? It's about that big wingspan.
Whoa.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. I was like, you're about my height? Yeah, not worse. And so that's about how big those birds are. And then this one over here, again, in a pile of saber-toothed cat ribs and direwolf hip bones and lots of sticks and branches. We've got this arch here and kind of this shape that I promise is there. But that's kind of a flat shape that's actually a shoulder blade of one of these big sloths. Our classic variety pack.
What is kind of the layout of this? Because in the middle there's this really big cluster of bones, and then over here, unless I'm not interpreting it correctly, this looks like there's almost nothing.
You're exactly correct.
Okay.
You're exactly correct. Good observational skills. Congratulations. And that's also why, if you notice, that area is more worked on so far. Right now what we're trying to do is kind of take slices and work our way towards this so that we can see some of the geological profiles. Basically look at that layer cake and see what it tells us about how these deposits formed.
Gotcha.
Because no game of Twister gets you this tangled up.
Yeah.
This is all biological and geological forces working together, and it's complicated.
Yeah.
And in the past, we kind of summarized it in a way that's kind of gotten to the point that it's not terribly accurate anymore. And so we're really trying to collect some good data and using some new technology that helps us visualize things in a different way, 3D computer modeling systems to try to make that change through time and how these deposits formed more visually and sometimes kinetically accessible. So we're kind of slicing in that way, but we're using more hammers and chisels over there and moving to things like dental tools once we're in here.
Is this clay? Is this a different material than the asphalt?
A lot of those areas are clay. That's also what a lot of this dust that has blown up on top of here is from. But there's also some areas over here. Let's see if I can. That's basically,
wow.
If you were to make pavement.
Yeah, it's like hitting a parking lot.
Yes, because what they do for that is they take refined asphalt and mix it with a very particular mix of sands and gravels and that kind of thing so that it cures into blacktop pavement. This kind of nature-made pavement right here.
Ah, gotcha.
Which means it's less likely to have fossils in it, and fortunately also doesn't. So
a little less work.
That makes my life easier. And then these ones are copies of fossils that I brought out just to make it easier, because I have a lot of practice seeing little bits of things and seeing what it is, but this right here I'm also just excited about, so that's why I brought it. So we're looking at just this piece. Exactly, very good. It's a vertebrae. This one's also a saber-toothed cat. And is a second cervical vertebrae. So from the neck, this little round bit right here is actually the part in which your world turns.
Wow.
And you can see just kind of that little backside of it just sneaking up out of that next grid. And what's fun is this kind of little mountain range over here is just the top of the third cervical vertebrae. So the next one down, that's kind of sitting right behind it here. So just like we're seeing these bones that belong next to each other in the skeleton, next to each other in the deposit, we're seeing that again over here. And normally with something as common as a saber-toothed cat, I wouldn't be able to say with any kind of confidence they're from the same individual. Usually saber-toothed cats are second most common big animal, so they just get jumbled up. But I've got my fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, in case this does end up being a really cool individual that's important for science, I want you guys a chance to see it now.
What are the twist ties for?
So these particular ones are where a piece of fossil, we are human, we make mistakes.
Yeah,
someone broke it. And to keep this together, so it's easier for it to go together in the laboratory and them to repair it, there's many different ways we could flag it, but I've learned, especially because it's going to be months before I get to this particular spot, I want it to just literally physically be there so that I don't have a chance to forget it later.
What is this big flat thing? Did you already say what that was?
I didn't, because there's a family-sized pack of Oreos that we've all been betting on to see it's either part of a shoulder blade or part of a hip. But we won't know until we get it out and look at the other side. I've got my fingers crossed, but I don't know.
Wow.
This is like a puzzle, trying to dig things out of other things. And how long is this taking you so far?
This one we're actually only just back to after a hiatus. Okay. I've been very, very excited to get back to. I haven't dug in here since January of 2020, so It's been a long time. We've worked on many other things, but this was my baby. But we originally opened it. It's been on and off, probably the most out of our fossil deposits, just because it's such a tidy deposit that's really good when we need for very specific projects, if we're doing like 3D scanning, that sort of thing. But this one we originally opened in 2013.
Wow.
And so
long time coming.
About here. Paleontology is a science of lots of patience, but at the same time, I'm so spoiled rotten that like every single grain of sand I move, I get to be the first person ever in the history of everything to see behind that grain of sand and that grain of sand. And I usually don't have to wait long before it's another fossil. And it's not always a big thing. So like the lizard scales, mouse toes, insect legs, seed pods, freshwater snail shells, all those tinier fossils that are around these larger ones that are helping to tell kind of a more holistic story.
After a full day at the site, my brain was pretty saturated with interesting tidbits of information, but not too saturated to have a look at the bone room.
So Emily, how many fossils are in here? Like how many bones?
Well, so we have, we think, around 4 to 5 million fossils. Only about 600,000 of those are fully cataloged and digitized. And this is our primary range, which is like our best curated section of the collection. So within here, I don't know, 500,000 to 1 million, maybe, I don't know.
Just 500,000.
Scientists have actually gone through and quantified sort of the types of injuries that different species get. So saber-toothed cats get a lot of lower back injuries, which is consistent with this idea that they're like leaping onto prey and grappling them to the ground. And meanwhile, dire wolves get a lot of the same injuries that we see in modern wolves and that are sort of chasing down predators. They get injured in their feet and their heads, which is sort of like the kind of trampling injuries we see in modern hunters.
Just so many. Yeah, look, it's just.
It's like any drawer you pull out. Pretty much most of this aisle is just direwolf skulls.
Jesus.
Like
there's 400 outside.
Wow.
Yeah, and we have so many direwolves. We don't even keep the rest of the body in this part of our collection. It's just skulls.
Wow. Oh my God.
So crazy.
And they're arranged by pit, right? So these are just direwolf skulls from pit 13, right? Like this whole wall, pit 13. Direwolf skull, pit 13, pit 13, like it's all. I mean, there's hundreds of direwolves just in this one pit, right?
That is ridiculous. I can't believe that this was like a real living thing. This isn't just like a cast. This was like an actual.
That was inside the head.
Yeah, that is insane.
And that cat was here. Like it walked right where you're standing, right here, because it got stuck here. I mean, that's the amazing thing. Like this, like a lot of museums you go to and they have cool stuff, but it's stuff they went somewhere else and like dug it up and brought it back. Everything we have here is, with the exception of like the modern comparative collection, is like a fossil that was dug up right here in this park.
Unbelievable.
We have these like very unique challenges being specifically in the city of Los Angeles, because everybody comes to Los Angeles expecting to see things that people made up, like Hollywood and Disneyland and Universal Studios, and a lot of people come here and they think that we're fake. Really? They think we're like one of these like fake LA, because like a tar pit, like what's a tar pit? It's so bizarre. You know, there's only
an amusement park.
Right. I mean, people think the asphalt's fake. They think like the people that you talk to in the lab and excavations that they're actors, or sometimes even robots.
Oh my God.
People have this very high level belief about what Hollywood can do and what you can do in LA. So I know Sean, I don't know if you talked to him earlier, but he told me he was working on the total station, which we use to measure the bones, and you have to like be very steady with it, like to get it sort of calibrated just right. And so he had been sort of like very still for a long time. He stood up and like somebody screamed because they're like, "You're real." He's like,
I'm doing my job, thanks. That's crazy.
This is good. These are some mammoth or mastodon, this mammoth femur here. And this, so this is a really good example of what we call pitware, which are these beautiful sort of polished grooves we get on some of the bones in some of our pits. And we think it's caused by bones rubbing against other bones or against rocks.
Really?
As like those methane bubbles are coming up for hundreds of years, and it just forms these like beautiful, you know, so they're not cut marks. Nobody was like butchering this mammoth, but they're just these, this cool example of pit ware, probably more common in deposits that also had more water going through them.
That's crazy. Yeah, that would totally throw me if I saw that. That's wild.
The folks at La Brea were amazingly helpful, and I'm very grateful for them helping set this up. And it was really great to be able to actually meet Lindsay in person. You know, her and I have done a lot of work together in the past. She's one of like the first creator friends I really made. And so it was really neat to be able to, you know, do something together and take up the same airspace.
The La Brea Tar Pits are a discovery that was one of the things that got me interested in paleoecology and history as a child. And so being able to actually come here today, not only to finally see the sites in person, but to be able to get a little behind the scenes look and bring it to all of you has been an actual dream come true. So I'd like to give a huge thank you to the staff here at the La Brea Tar Pits for welcoming me, Lindsay, and my crew to come film here and share this all with you. If you ever find yourself in Los Angeles, California, and are looking for something other to do than the glitz and glam of, you know, Hollywood, I really recommend you come here to the La Brea Tar Pits. It is an amazing location, and the only thing better than seeing these sites through your screen is actually seeing it in person. I'd like to give a huge thank you to all of you for watching. As always, any interaction on this video helps me continue doing what I do here for free, and I'd like to give an extra special thank you to patrons who make what I do here possible. Patrons get early ad-free access to all of my videos, and all of your names will be in the credits of these videos as a small token of my appreciation. Remember to stay curious, stay inquisitive, and most importantly, don't fall in, idiot.
Oh my gosh.
Yo.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'm just saying, new merch drop idea? What's going on, guys? Today we're here at the La Brea Tar Pits. Today I'm going to be telling you...
Never beating the furry allegations.
Yeah.
That's a look.
Wow. Yo, Lindsay, matching skulls?
Yeah, matching skulls. Why is it only $100?
It is? Are you serious?
Hey, that's a write-off.
That's pretty sick, actually.
It is.
Wow.
The jaw doesn't open, but it's $100.
That is actually kind of a steal. And it's like, it's your thing, dude. It's your whole thing. Yeah, you can make the jaw open.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, wait, that one's open.
That's nice.
Yeah, I think that one is permanently.
Oh, it's for sale?
Oh,
yeah. Are those also?
Are they for
Are
sale?
those demo?
We should ask. Tax write-off.
Everything is a tax write-off.
Are those
Don't tell
with
the
the
IRS
stand
I said
for
that.
sale?
Yeah.
Milo.
And I filmed it for TikTok.
With the stand, it's $150.
Dude. I feel like we might have to do it. Matching La Brea Tar Pits? Yeah.
So
That's great.
sick.
Yeah.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, I think I might have to do that as
gotta
well.
do
That's
it.
really cool. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm doing the same thing. We're gonna get matching ones.
Yeah. Matching skulls.
Matching skulls, dude.
Matching skulls for the besties.
Hell yeah, dude.
I have been looking at replica skulls of Smilodon for 3 years, and I just haven't done it. And this one is like half the price as other ones online. So, boom. That's why La Brea Tar Pits is the best.
What's that?
Where's that face when we're making thumbnails? Yeah.
Not clickbait. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's go. Boom, 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 boom.
Well, I've made it home with my matching identical skull with Lindsay. And, you know, we were a little bummed that, you know, the jaw didn't open. But little did I know that with a little help from the good people at UPS, my skull's jaw would open permanently. So thanks, guys, very much for that. Lindsay, I hope your skull's doing better. And this one misses you already. So thanks, guys, for watching. Until next time.